Have you ever noticed how the people who hurt you most seem to sleep perfectly well at night, while you're the one replaying every moment, crafting the perfect confrontation in your mind that never comes? What if I told you that your silence, the very thing you think makes you weak, is actually the most devastating weapon in your psychological arsenal? And that Machiavelli understood something about human guilt that modern psychology is only now beginning to confirm? Before we dive in, if you find value in these psychological insights, hit that like button and subscribe. This channel is about understanding the hidden mechanics of human behavior, and your support helps us continue exploring these fascinating topics together. Let's start with a scenario you've probably lived through. Someone betrays your trust, a friend who spreads your secrets, a partner who lies, a colleague who takes credit for your work. Your first instinct is to confront them, to make them see what they've done, to force an acknowledgement of your pain. So you prepare your case. You rehearse your words. You imagine their face crumbling with realization. And then one of two things happens. Either they deflect, deny, and turn it back on you. You're too sensitive. That's not what happened. You're overreacting. Or they give you a hollow apology that somehow makes you feel worse than before. You walk away feeling less validated, not more. The confrontation you built up in your mind, the one where they finally see you, never materializes. Here's what conventional wisdom tells us. Communicate your feelings. Set boundaries. Be honest about your hurt. And while these aren't wrong, they're catastrophically incomplete because they ignore a fundamental truth about human psychology. People don't feel guilty because you tell them to. They feel guilty when they're forced to confront the evidence of their own character in an inescapable mirror. Think about when you felt the deepest guilt in your own life. Was it when someone yelled at you, listing your transgressions? Or was it in a quiet moment when you saw the disappointment in someone's eyes? When your actions spoke louder than any accusation they could make? The psychological principle at work here is what researchers call cognitive dissonance. The mental discomfort we experience when our actions contradict our self-image. Most people see themselves as fundamentally good, fair, and reasonable. When they hurt someone, they need to resolve this dissonance somehow. If you give them a target, your anger, your accusations, your visible pain, you hand them an escape route. You become unreasonable, dramatic, or vindictive in their narrative. You give them permission to make you the villain of the story. But when you withdraw, when you become unreachable, unreadable, and unfazed, you force them to sit alone with their actions. You remove every external target and leave them facing the only judge that truly matters, themselves. To understand why strategic silence is so psychologically devastating, we need to explore what happens in the human mind when we hurt someone who refuses to react. In the 1950s, psychologist Leon Festinger developed his theory of cognitive dissonance after studying a doomsday cult. When their predicted apocalypse didn't occur, instead of abandoning their beliefs, members actually became more devoted. Why? Because the alternative, admitting they'd been wrong, that they'd sacrificed so much for nothing, was psychologically unbearable. The mind will perform extraordinary gymnastics to maintain its internal narrative. When someone wrongs you and you react predictably, with anger, with demands, with visible hurt, you help them maintain their narrative. Your reaction becomes evidence in their internal case. See, they're emotional. They're difficult. Maybe I wasn't so wrong after all. Your pain, paradoxically, absolves them. But silence offers no such comfort. Consider the evolutionary psychology at play. Human beings are social creatures who survived through cooperation and group cohesion. Our ancestors, who couldn't read social cues, who couldn't track their standing in the tribe, who couldn't sense when they'd crossed a line, they didn't pass on their genes. We evolved to be exquisitely sensitive to social exclusion and rejection because, for most of human history, exile meant death. This is why ostracism has been used as punishment across virtually every human culture. The Amish practice of shunning. The ancient Greek practice of ostracism, where they literally got the word. Even modern prison systems recognize that solitary confinement is more psychologically damaging than physical punishment. To be removed from the social fabric, to become invisible to those who once valued you, this triggers something primal in the human nervous system. When you withdraw from someone who's hurt you, you're not just punishing them, you're activating millions of years of evolutionary alarm bells. Their nervous system begins asking, am I being expelled? Have I lost this relationship? What does this mean about my social standing? But here's where it gets even more psychologically complex. Machiavelli understood something that modern research on rejection sensitivity has confirmed. The people most likely to hurt others are often the same people most terrified of being abandoned themselves. The friend who betrays you is often the one most paranoid about betrayal. The partner who lies is most suspicious of being lied to. The colleague who undermines you is most insecure about their own competence. This isn't coincidence, it's projection. People often inflict on others the wounds they fear receiving themselves, which means that when you withdraw from someone who's hurt you, you're not just triggering generic social anxiety, you're poking directly at their deepest insecurity. There's also a neurological component worth understanding. When we interact with someone regularly, our brains create neural patterns, expectations of how they'll respond, what role they play in our life, how we feel in their presence. These patterns become automated, requiring minimal conscious processing. We develop what neuroscientists call predictive models of the people in our lives. When you suddenly become unpredictable, when the person who always responded to their messages goes silent, when the friend who always forgave becomes unreachable, you disrupt those neural patterns. The brain doesn't like disruption. It craves predictability because predictability equals safety. This disruption creates cognitive strain, forcing them to consciously process what you once provided automatically. Every time they think of you, their brain must work harder, must confront the absence, must ask, what changed? What did I do? This is the mechanism by which silence becomes intrusive. You occupy more mental space when you're absent than you ever did when you were present and reactive. Now we arrive at the counterintuitive insight that transforms everything. True power over someone who's hurt you isn't making them feel guilty. It's not needing them to feel guilty at all. Let that sit for a moment, because it sounds like a contradiction. We've been talking about how silence makes people feel guilt, and now I'm saying the goal isn't their guilt? Here's the paradox. Silence only works as a psychological tool when it's genuine, when it comes from a place of authentic detachment rather than calculated manipulation. Think about the difference between these two scenarios. Scenario 1. Someone hurts you. You go silent, but internally you're monitoring their every move. You're checking if they noticed, if they're reacting, if they're suffering. You're performing silence while remaining completely entangled. This isn't Machiavellian revenge. It's passive aggression, and it's transparent. People can feel the difference between authentic disengagement and performative withdrawal. Scenario 2. Someone hurts you. You genuinely reassess their place in your life. You realize that continuing to give them access to your energy, your time, your emotional real estate, this isn't serving you. So you redirect your attention to people and pursuits that deserve it. The silence isn't a strategy. It's a natural consequence of changed priorities. The second scenario is devastating precisely because it's authentic. When people sense you're genuinely moving on, not performing withdrawal, but actually redistributing your limited resources toward better investments, that's when guilt hits with full force. Here's why. We can defend ourselves against attacks. We can rationalize, justify, explain away someone's anger. But we have no defense against irrelevance. When someone's anger says, "You hurt me," we can argue about whether they're being reasonable. But when someone's absence says, "You're not worth the energy," there's no counter-argument to make. This reveals something profound about human psychology. We can tolerate someone hating us far more easily than we can tolerate them being indifferent to us. Hate keeps us in the story. Indifference writes us out entirely. The psychological term for this is narcissistic injury, the wound to our ego when we realize we don't matter to someone we assumed we mattered to. And you don't have to be a clinical narcissist to experience this. We all carry some degree of ego, some assumption that we occupy more space in others' minds than we probably do. When that assumption is challenged, when someone's behavior reveals that we're less significant to them than we believed, it's deeply unsettling. This is what Machiavelli understood about power. The appearance of not caring is more powerful than any demonstration of caring could ever be. When you chase someone who's hurt you, demanding acknowledgement, you reveal that they still have power over you. But when you disappear, when you become the one who got away, the one who couldn't be won back, you invert the entire power dynamic. But here's the deeper truth that most people miss. This only works as a byproduct, never as a primary goal. If your silence is about making them suffer, you're still giving them your energy, still measuring your worth by their reaction. You're still entangled, just in a different way. Real power comes when you genuinely reach the point where their guilt, their realization, their regret, none of it matters because you've already moved on. This is the liberation that comes from understanding this aspect of human nature. You don't need them to acknowledge your pain. You don't need them to apologize. You don't need them to understand what they lost. Those things are bonuses, not prerequisites for your peace. When you truly internalize this, something remarkable happens. You stop performing and start living. Your absence becomes authentic. And ironically, that's when people feel the full weight of what they've done. Not because you're trying to make them feel it, but because your genuine disinterest is the most honest mirror they've ever looked into. So how do you actually apply this understanding without it becoming just another manipulation tactic? How do you walk the line between healthy boundary setting and calculated psychological warfare? Step 1. Conduct a ruthless inventory. Before you do anything, ask yourself, am I withdrawing to punish them, or am I withdrawing to protect myself? If the honest answer is punishment, you're not ready yet. Your silence will leak resentment, and they'll feel controlled rather than lost. Instead, get clear on what this person's role in your life has actually been. Not what you wished it was, not what they promised it would be, but what the evidence shows. If someone repeatedly hurts you, they're showing you who they are. Your job isn't to make them become different, it's to decide whether who they are deserves continued access to you. Journal on these questions. What have I been getting from this relationship? What has it been costing me? If I met this person today with the knowledge I now have, would I choose to let them into my life? What am I afraid will happen if I truly let go? Step 2. Redefine what you're owed. Most people get stuck because they're waiting for something that will never come. The perfect apology, the full acknowledgement, the complete understanding of their pain. This waiting keeps you tethered to someone who's already proven they can't give you what you need. Reframe your thinking. You're not owed their understanding. You're not owed their growth. You're not owed their remorse. The universe doesn't work on a system of deserved apologies. What you are owed is your own peace, your own clarity, and your own freedom to invest your finite energy wherever you choose. This shift is profound because it moves you from victim to author of your own story. Their failure to apologize is no longer something that traps you. It's simply information about their capacity, their character, and your future choices. Step 3. Create practical distance. Silence isn't just emotional, it requires logistical boundaries. Unfollow on social media, not dramatic blocking, just quiet removal from your feed. Stop initiating contact completely if you must interact. Shared workplace, family connections. Keep responses brief, polite, and emotionally neutral. Remove reminders, photos, gifts, anything that keeps you in the emotional loop. Redirect the energy you once spent analyzing them toward building something meaningful in your own life. The key is that this distance must serve your healing, not their punishment. If you're still checking their social media obsessively, you haven't created distance. You've just changed the channel. Step 4. Fill the space. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does your psyche. If you create distance from someone who hurt you, but don't fill that space with something meaningful, you'll get pulled back into old patterns. This is where the work really is. What relationships, projects, or pursuits deserve the energy you've been wasting on someone who doesn't value it? Who are the people in your life who consistently show up with integrity? What creative project have you been neglecting? What version of yourself have you been postponing? When you genuinely become absorbed in building a life that fulfills you, something magical happens. You forget to check if they've noticed your absence. And that's the moment you've actually moved on. Step 5. Prepare for the Hoover. Here's what usually happens. You withdraw. Time passes. They notice. And suddenly, often when you've started to heal, they reach out. Not with a real apology or changed behavior, but with a breadcrumb, a meme, how are you? A crisis they need your help with. This is called hoovering, named after the vacuum cleaner, and it's a test of your boundaries. The person who hurt you, consciously or unconsciously, is checking, can I still access you? Do I still have power here? Your response in this moment determines everything. If you engage with the same energy as before, you've taught them that boundaries don't mean anything. If you respond with long explanations of why you're hurt, you're back in the game of trying to make them understand. The powerful response is either no response or a brief, neutral acknowledgement that doesn't invite further connection. I'm doing well, hope you are too. No justifications, no essays, no emotional labor. Most people will try multiple times. Each attempt is gathering information. How firm is this boundary? Can I negotiate my way back in? Your consistency here teaches them whether your silence was a mood or a decision. Step 6. The ultimate test. Eventually, you'll reach a point where they do genuinely apologize, or where you've healed enough that reconnection becomes possible. This is the ultimate test of whether you've truly integrated this lesson. Ask yourself, am I considering reconnection because I've genuinely forgiven and see evidence of change, or because I want to feel powerful for having won? Has this person demonstrated through sustained action over time that they've actually done the internal work? Can I engage with them without needing them to grovel, without needing to punish them, without needing anything from them at all? If you can't answer yes to these questions, you're not ready, and that's okay. Sometimes the healthiest choice is permanent distance, not reconciliation. So here's what we've uncovered together. The most powerful response to someone who's hurt you isn't the confrontation you've been rehearsing or the revenge you've been plotting. It's the genuine redirection of your energy toward a life they don't get to be part of. Machiavelli's silent revenge isn't really revenge at all. It's the natural consequence of a person who values themselves enough to stop investing in people who've proven they don't value them back. The guilt others feel in your absence? That's not your doing. It's the universe's feedback loop, showing them what they had while they had it. The most profound part of this understanding is that it liberates you from needing anything from the people who've hurt you. You don't need their acknowledgement to know your pain was real. You don't need their apology to move forward. You don't need their regret to validate your worth. All of those things are bonuses that may or may not come, and your peace doesn't depend on them. When you truly integrate this lesson, you become dangerous in the best possible way. Dangerous to anyone who thinks your forgiveness is unlimited, your boundaries are negotiable, or your energy is an endless resource they can drain without consequence. Not because you're vindictive, but because you've finally understood that the most respectful thing you can do for yourself is take people at face value and respond accordingly. So here's my challenge for you. Think about someone in your life who keeps hurting you, who you keep letting back in, who you keep trying to make understand. Ask yourself honestly, what am I getting from this dynamic? What am I afraid of losing? And most importantly, what becomes possible when I stop performing for someone who isn't even watching the show? Leave your thoughts in the comments. What's the hardest part about walking away from someone who's hurt you? The silence or the internal work of actually letting go? Remember, the people who deserve you will never make you choose between your dignity and their presence. Everyone else, they're teaching you the most valuable lesson you'll ever learn about what you're willing to tolerate. Until next time, understand yourself deeply and move accordingly. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. Sonnet 4.5